what I wanted to do today was talk to you a little bit about some of the work that we're doing in Specsavers to really revolutionise the way that we interact with our customers and our stores. And that's driven largely by changes in the marketplace, but also some changes that are specific to optics, but also I think affect the broader retail environment. So, a little bit about myself. I'm CTO of Specsavers, been there about 6 years. I'm not a retail specialist. Previously, I've been with financial services companies and also with Bupa, which is part financial services. So I've been with Specsavers about 6 years, and during that time, we've taken the IT organisation specifically through quite a radical change from what it was to where it currently is. Partly in anticipation of what I'm going to talk about today, which is the disruptive elements in the market that are meaning that we have to really take a different approach to the way we do IT. So the agenda really is going to focus around a little bit about Specsavers and what makes Specsavers an unusual and interesting company. A bit about the retail landscape that we operate in, the challenges that are very specific to Specsavers but also would affect some other companies as well, and then what we're doing about it and how it all sort of comes together in what we're calling a smart store. So, Specsavers. So, Specsavers is very interesting. It started by Doug and Mary Perkins 30 odd years ago now in Guernsey. And Doug and Mary had previously, they're both opticians, and they previously had a chain of optician stores in the southwest of England. They sold those and had retired, in inverted commas, to Guernsey with the money that they'd taken from that sale. And then something interesting happened, which was for the UK government deregulated the optical market. So for the first time, you were allowed to do an eye test and sell glasses from the same room, which previously you hadn't been able to do. You could either do one or the other. And so they kind of seized on this opportunity and said, right, this is now an opportunity for us to do what we've always wanted to do. And they started the first Specsavers store, Bond Street in Bristol, which was obviously an area they knew from the southwest. And what happened then was, over the next probably 20 years, 15 years, there was a relatively modest growth, and then there was a massive explosion in growth in the 90s and the early 2000s. And now they've got over 2,300 store partners and 1,750 stores in 10 countries. One of the interesting things about Doug is he always says he's not interested in going into a country unless he can dominate the market. So, for example, in the UK, we've got about 50% market share. We have competitors on the high street that everybody knows about, but their market share compared to ours is very, very small. It's similar now in Australia, where we entered the market probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and we've now got 40% market share in Australia, and similarly in New Zealand. So the company grows through territorial gains, really, and the way it works is in each Specsavers store, the partners in the store, and there are two partners, there's a retail partner and an optical partner, they own half the business. So it's actually a joint venture. Each store is its own business, and they keep the profits and they pay us a fee. So obviously, everyone can work out the more stores we've got, the more fees we get. And they have to buy from our supply chain. So we have the largest optical supply chain in the world as well. So turnover is just over 2 billion last year, and growth rates in the UK still 5% a year, which is pretty interesting. I was down in Australia recently, and I heard the comms meeting down in that business, and they were saying that their growth rates are still 8-9% a year down there. And they said, but the UK is still 5%. They said, if we've been in business 30 years and we're still growing at 5%, we'll be pretty happy. So yeah, it's quite an interesting business. But the key to it all is the joint venture model. because the guys in the stores own the businesses, so it's in their interests to really drive the volume in those businesses. That's Doug and Mary. That's a relatively recent photograph because that's what they still look like. They're very active in the business. They still turn up to lots of meetings. Doug is still going around buying things and doing stuff, and he's a very innovative guy and very driven. And that kind of gives you the map of the business there. So we have 3 trading regions. We trade in regions. We've got the Northern European region, which is effectively the 4 Nordic countries plus Holland. UK and Republic of Ireland, which kind of is self-explanatory, and then Australia and New Zealand. You can see the numbers of stores down there, and 300 stores in Australia. There is Doug wrote a book about that whole thing, which he maintains that we opened 100 stores in 100 days in Australia, which is pretty amazing. They just blew that market away when they went in. So that's Specsavers. Oh yeah, one thing I haven't mentioned, which is on there actually, is that we also do audiology, which is not so well known, but it is a growing business for us, and largely on the back of the NHS contracts. So let's have a look at the optical landscape within retail. Now, one of the interesting things about this business is if we're going to sell glasses to people, they need a prescription. And it needs to be a prescription that is less than 2 years old. So that means if we want to sell them glasses, and if you want to buy glasses in a regulated market, you need that prescription. Therefore, you're forced to have an eye test every 2 years if you wear glasses, if you want to change your glasses. And so that really has meant that the bricks and mortar are very important, because the only way of getting an eye test is to turn up and sit in front of an optician for 20 minutes while he gives you a prescription. You can then go into the store and buy some glasses. But there is some disruptive technology which has been bubbling around now for a couple of years, which is starting to mature. And that is auto-refraction and online sight tests. So for those of you who are customers of ours, you'll realise that the first thing you do when you go in a store is the pre-test. And they go in a pre-test room and they test the glaucoma and that kind of stuff. Well, we could now put you in front of an autorefractor, and within 5 minutes it would tell you what your prescription was within 95% accuracy. So that then takes a sight test down from 20 minutes to 5 minutes, and you don't need an expensive optician to do it, which is quite interesting. And for a business which is kind of made up of opticians and run by opticians, this isn't like good news. However, there is good news. The other thing which is interesting is online sight tests. So I kind of live quite a long way from all of our offices. So on Fridays I do tend to try and work from home. And one of the things I can do there is on Friday afternoon just check out who's prepared to give me a prescription from doing an online sight test. And you can all do this. And normally within 15 minutes there's someone who's prepared to email me a prescription. And these online sight tests are quite interesting, sort of very much like the test you do in an optician's, but it's all your own. It's your subjectivity to say, does that look better than that? And then from that they'll build up a picture of how much you trust it is an interesting question, but it's there, right? So all of that then changes the position of the General Optical Council, which says you need it's a regulated market, because who cares? There's some bloke somewhere in the world who's prepared to send you a prescription and then send you a pair of glasses afterwards. It doesn't matter what they say. The market, the monopoly is gone. And these are two things that, there was a seminal moment in the business, I think, where the most senior optician stood up about 18 months ago in front of everybody, the top directors in the business, and said, unfortunately, guys, online sight tests are now a reality. And you could hear a pin drop in the room, because everybody's ignored this for years on the grounds that it's not good news. So I think the other thing is customers are just expecting more. I talked a little bit more about this on the panel, really, but we started to introduce some interesting technology in our stores now, and this is called precision care. So this is where we use an iPad to just take a photograph of people, and we then very accurately measure the pupil distance. It's interesting, my wife did this, and she said, I just didn't want him taking a photograph of me. So that was that's actually the biggest pushback we get, is people say, oh, I've got to do my hair or something. But actually, this has made a big difference. to our stores, and actually the way that our staff are beginning to think about technology and the way our customers are beginning to think about technology. And they're starting to think that actually within this type of environment now, you can start to use these technologies to improve the experience. And this really genuinely has reduced the number of remakes we have. And then the other thing, which is interesting for us, is the move from national health to push secondary services onto the high street. So I think a lot of people might have experienced this already, but audiology certainly are trying to get out of hospitals, and we do 50% of the National Health Service audiology tests now. I noticed this year they're doing flu vaccinations in chemists rather than in doctor surgeries. And what they're now saying is the NHS is saying you can get glaucoma test or a diabetes test or wet macular degeneration test at an optician's, and they're trying to get more out there. It's called enhanced optical services. So this is a very interesting thing for us because we've got a load of opticians, in fact more opticians than anybody else, and we've got to move towards online sight testing, but actually these guys are all qualified to do these tests. So you can then start to hoover up a secondary set of services. So the question is, do our stores actually become clinics? And there's a big question around whether we're a healthcare company or retailer anyway. So I think that the final thing that kind of I find most interesting about this marketplace at the moment is the way the customer is really starting to take control of the way they shop. And I think if you remember for those of us who've been in IT a while, we used to start off over here. I remember designing systems where it was all about the user and the process, and it was about going through a process. And then all of a sudden, the internet opened everything up, and the user was at the heart, no longer of a process, but this big network. You know, I'm always very keen to try and explain I think now, and I said this morning, technology is about networking now. It's not really about processing capabilities, it's masses of processing capability. The key thing about technology is network and access to network. And this has fundamentally changed the way people think about things. So I think very recently the user was at the heart of the network. Now the customer is right at the heart of our network. The customers actually want to actively do their own things on our systems using their own devices. And I think this is very true of all retailing now. You know, you go to the innovation centres, Accenture have got and whatever, and they'll show you the sort of the smart stuff that they've got going around the way that they foresee people shopping in the future based on the location of your mobile device, letting them know you're in store and then giving you the right kind of offers based on how much you spend with them. So I think fundamentally now the mobile device and access to network is going to drive how people shop. Now we've got some quite specific challenges. Our stores are very, very busy. So we've got half of the spectacle wearing population of the UK visit our stores every 2 years. And generally they want to go at lunchtime or after work. And our stores aren't big enough. You know, even Tottenham Court Road on 4 floors is bloody busy at lunchtime. So we have to do everything we can to get as much of the process out of the store as we can and to free up space in store. Otherwise, wait times can become irritating for people. The other interesting thing is that in an hour and a half in a Specsavers store, 1 minute you're a customer, next minute you're a patient, and then you become a customer again. And so we have to deal with that situation. Our store staff have to be able to know when they're selling and know when you're a patient. And they have to be able to deal with those transitions. And that's a challenge as well. And we also have an optical heritage, which ultimately, when all of this, you know, the whole world is changing for optics, and you were trained 20 years ago or 25 years ago to do sight tests, and all of a sudden there's a machine that can do a sight test in 5 minutes, it's a bit difficult. And the other thing is, you know, like a lot of companies that have grown rapidly, 6 years ago we had a very aging infrastructure. And you know, it was when I got there, it looked like an infrastructure for a company that might have 200 or 300 branches, not 2,000. And we've had to deal with that, and we're dealing with that all the time. And these are all challenges for us. So what are we doing? Well, I think we see this as a massive opportunity for us. There's sort of like an alignment of the stars here, which sort of go, well, there's new technology which is starting to mean that our opticians can do other things. There's changes in the health market which mean that the National Health wants more clinical services from us. And our customers want to do more themselves. So you add it all up and you go, well, those are either really difficult things, or there's a really interesting challenge there for us, which is to basically, if you like, allow the customers to do as much as possible themselves, which frees up space in the store. Allow the opticians to do more interesting things than just sight tests, which is great. And then use the technology to force the commodity end of the business onto the internet. And in that way, you can actually harness all of these things for an opportunity. So we have 4 major programs in flight. And I have to say, if you looked at it from outside, you probably wouldn't do it this way, but you kind of have to. Sometimes you have to run multiple programs. The one that isn't even on there is another program, which is to implement Oracle ERP, but it doesn't even hit the radar screen of stuff that we're trying to do, because it's just something we need to do, and kind of how hard can it be? You know, lots of other organisations have done it. So, these are the ones that, if you like, really focus on the customer. So we've got what we call iHarmony. I have no idea why it's called iHarmony, which is the one I spoke about this morning, which is the shop refit. We've got Genesys, which is to replace all of the assisted journey systems, effectively the store systems globally. We've got a digital program, obviously, because you've got to have a digital program, and we've got the one that I fight most for, but everybody finds really uninteresting compared to all the other stuff, is the data program. And they all add up to an integrated change, which is literally replacing every single piece of technology we've got in the business over the next 3 years. Which is, we're on with it, but it's hard work. So this is the new store layout, and you can see there's not a lot of desks. Everything's basically mobile, and this has just completely changed. On stores that have had this, many have seen an increase in revenue of over 20% just by doing this. And all it does is just make the stores look better. People are more encouraged to buy a pair of glasses. Conversion is higher because it's all been done on a mobile device, and they can start to see stuff and they believe in it, and it's just a more engaging experience. The customer service figures, customer experience figures are much higher on the stores that have been done than the stores that aren't being done. But this is hard work as well, and sort of refitting the stores, we get through 20 or 30 a month, and that's about it. And when you've got 2,000 to do, that takes a while. Everything, mobile payments. The other thing it does do as well, it gives us more test rooms because it frees up space, which is also a problem for us because people all want to have their sight tests at the same time. But it definitely has improved customer interaction. So then we have the program called Genesys. I apologise for the spelling, it was some pun, this is the one where we really start to make a difference from a customer experience point of view outside the store, because our store systems at the moment were put in place 10 years ago, and they're fat client systems. They can't be exposed to the internet. It was not designed to be exposed to the internet. This is a centrally hosted HTML5 based system where all the services can be exposed via a browser. So go back to what I was saying earlier, we're designing the system with our customer in mind as well as our store staff. So when we expose appointment bookings to our customers, they'll get the same appointments booking service that the store staff get. And the amend your details will be done when we release, my Specsavers portal will be the same service that our store staff use. So the principle now is that we build services that can be exposed via browsers, and that's all we do. And we host them centrally. Now this obviously puts enormous challenges from a network point of view when you're trying to reach 2,000 stores in a consistent way. It's a slightly different position for us at the moment. If one store's down, but in the future, centrally hosted networks. So this system's live in New Zealand. Trialled it in New Zealand, I suppose, because it's a long way away. So if it didn't work, it's long. Anyway, no, it's fine. It's working very well. We go to Finland next, and then we're going to start just rolling it through Northern Europe. This goes just ahead of our Oracle system, which is also being rolled out now, and that's live in 3 countries as well. But this is really now what we've got is we've got a different style of store. It's all based around mobile devices, and we've got the capability to expose services to our customers much more readily. This, though, is the key to it all. It's really boring, but it's the key to it all. Like most organisations, I would say, that have grown through acquisitions and quickly, the quality of our data may not always be what we want it to be. And so this programme, Single View of Customer, has been on the go for a number of years now and is live in the UK. And we can roll it to the rest of the world. And we're getting massive benefits from using Oracle Master Data Management to master all of our product data. And that is just completely changing the quality of experience of some of the stores. So we can now expose that data confidently. So when we're putting frame catalogues on the internet, we now know they're right. And that's the thing, right? We explain to people a lot that all of the stuff that seems very exciting, the Genesys and the iHarmonies, they're all fine, but if you're trying to expose poor quality data to your customers, then it's not so good. And this is absolutely at the heart of everything we're trying to do, is you've got to have clean data, and you've got to have consistent data if you're exposing that to your customers. And then obviously we've got some business intelligence and digital strategy. So, and the final thing then is, this all adds up to how does the customer interact with us? And we've got 2 different stories now. We've got a number of different stories now. We've got Sally's story, which is I could play the video, it takes too long. She's a hard-working 50-year-old mum who's got lots on her plate, and as she's walking through town, we send her recall email on a mobile device, and she goes, "Oh yes, I do need to go, don't I?" And then we've got a link to the store, the local store, straight into the diary. She can book it really easily. We then send her a confirmation with a link to the online frame catalogue, and also download a try-on app, so she can choose her specs before she even comes to store, and she can reserve them before she gets to store. And she's tried them on. She's tweeted them to her friend, who said, "Yeah, I like those ones." And that's one of the big things about people choosing frames now, is they want recommendations from their friends. So that being able to do it before you even get to store is a big thing. And then, that you can imagine what happens then. She gets to the store and it's all great experience. But then we've got this other guy here, John. He never even wants to go to the store at all. He's got his prescription. He's quite happy with it. His eyes don't really change. He's young. So he basically just goes online, buys glasses with the prescription that he's already got. And all of the things that we're building within the store and within the environment to allow people to do this, I mean, these 2 stories become possible, and these customer journeys become possible. There are others, but in true Specsavers style, they're all quite down to earth, and they're a bit like our adverts. So the final thing then really is that we take all of that, and the final program is the digital program, which I glibly said you've got to have one, but actually it's quite important to us. And I was quite pleased today, the director of digital marketing said, "This is interesting, and this is what I'm saying." He talked about this for about 45 minutes the other day, and someone asked a question. He said, "But without all of the other stuff, without Genesys and without the data program and the Oracle program, this just doesn't work." That's the heart and lungs of the business, if you like. And this is the window shop, the window dressing that goes on top of it. Sort of manage your appointments and collections online. Well, you can't really do that unless you've done all the other stuff. Frame recommendations, that's something that's quite popular now, is you bought these last time, you might like these. And it's quite easy with frames. And also, we can all take this further when we've got a My Specsavers and people have uploaded pictures, we'll be able to analyse people's face shape and actually make recommendations, because actually the type of glasses that suit you largely depend on the shape of your face. So there's quite a lot we can do once we get more data. Order a second frame online is quite popular. And then the try-on. This is going to be a big deal. Try-on, face-on, what they call it, frame-on-face technology. It's okay now, but it's not great. But we're working with a number of companies in California to allow three-dimensional frame-on-face. And so once we can do that, people will genuinely be able to get a really clear view of what they're going to look like on various pairs of glasses, which are on our website at home, and turn it around. It's really interesting. It'll make a massive difference to how much people use this stuff. So all of that really, we think, adds up to what we call the smart store. So it's not really about bricks and mortar, but it's combining the best of what we've got already, the bricks and mortar that we've got, with the customer's desire to do more themselves, our desire to change the way we interact with our customers, and also the disruptive technologies that are hitting the optical marketplace. And I think that's sort of, we're probably 2 years into what is a 5-year transition period here. And I think, you know, we've probably just about got on the bow wave at the right time. Who are our competitors? We don't really know who our competitors are. But in this marketplace, this different one, it probably isn't Boots, it probably isn't Vision Express, could be Amazon. But then everybody says that. Okay, so that's pretty much all I had to say. I'm happy to take any questions.